Baba Yaga walks to her house, which bends its knees and settles its butt hut on the ground. She hauls herself up onto the porch and opens the front door. Then, framed by the doorway, she turns to Vasilisa and says, "Enter, if you dare." And then she laughs. This one isn't a cackle. This laugh comes from the depths of hell. It rises through sulfur and decay until it gets to Baba Yaga's belly, where it mixes with the marrow of yesterday's partially digested kill. When it finally comes out, it shakes the entire world, or at least as far as the mind can see. And it smells like farts and eggs. And then Baba Yaga enters her house, leaving the door open. Vasilisa seriously considers running away. Running away inevitably means being eaten, but honestly, that doesn't seem like the worst case scenario here. From deep within her apron pocket, she hears the doll whisper, "I love you, and I know you, and I know this is scary and seems like too much, but I also know that you can get through this. And what's on the other side of this is where you want to be." Vasilisa has learned that there are few things she can truly trust, but she does trust her doll. So she takes one step and then another and gets up on the porch and walks through the doorway into Baba Yaga's house. "Yes," the doll encourages. "Yes," Vasilisa grimaces. "Yes." Baba Yaga grins. If it didn't threaten to consume your very soul and crunch it into tiny bits along with your bones, Baba Yaga's house would be amazing. It is crammed full of cool shit that you probably don't want to examine too closely. It has a style of its own, eclectic and shabby chic, emphasis on the shabby. There is a huge, sturdy oak table with one chair pushed up against it, and on that table is an enormous meal. You can actually hear the table groaning under the weight of the food. And the food smells good, which is surprising since everything else in the vicinity smells like death dying. Vasilisa is inclined to look around, but the doll guides her to stay still. Baba Yaga whips off her cloak and throws it aside, where it falls in a pile that covers a surprising expanse of floor. She tosses the slice of bone she has been smoking towards the huge masonry stove in the center of the hut, and the oven door opens on its own accord to swallow it. The smoldering bone bursts into flame, filling the room with smoke and heat. Then the oven door shuts itself, and when the smoke clears, Baba Yaga is at her table, consuming the contents at an impressive pace. "Remember what food is on the table," the doll whispers. So as Baba Yaga eats, Vasilisa studies the table, trying to memorize the vast assortment of foods that are swiftly disappearing. It seems like an impossible feat, and Vasilisa has to ignore the frantic anxiety welling up in her and focus all her energy on this one task. "I'm freaking out," she can't help telling the doll telepathically. "Freak out later," the doll mind melds back. When Baba Yaga is finally finished, she lets out a belch that shakes the house and fills it with the smell of zombie armpits. Well, at least Vasilisa no longer feels hungry. "The rest is for you, sweetie pie," Baba Yaga says. "Get what you can before the help arrives. Tomorrow you will sweep the floors, wash my clothes, clean the yard, and cook my supper." Then she walks to a shelf and knocks a jar of seeds to the floor like a pissed off cat. Or any cat, really. It doesn't need to be pissed off. "Oops," she deadpans. Also, retrieve every single poppy seed and pick out all the glass and dirt. Baba Yaga springs up onto the massive hearth atop the masonry stove and lies down. Now tuck me in. It takes a moment for Vasilisa to catch up to the fact that she's been ordered to tuck what monsters have nightmares about into bed. The doll indicates the cloak on the floor, so Vasilisa goes to pick it up. It's so heavy that she face plants into it, causing a for real spontaneous laugh from Baba Yaga. As Vasilisa wrestles with the ton of cloth, laughs keep escaping from Baba Yaga, like she's playing that fall over and over in her head and unexpectedly delighted each time. Powered by her strength of determination, Vasilisa manages to drag the cloak over to the stove and heave it up onto the reposing witch. She tucks the cloak blanket around Baba Yaga like a burrito. Now give her a kiss, the doll says. Okay, Vasilisa says and starts to lean in. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Just back away slowly, the doll directs. As Vasilisa slowly retreats, she hears Baba Yaga say, do it all and do it perfectly, or I'll eat you. And then she's snoring. Vasilisa collapses. She has been awake for going on 40 hours, and a full 24 of those hours were on adrenaline overload. She needs to eat, but is not at all hungry, and the food available is covered with witch spittle. The doll insists that she at least eat the bread crust lying on the table, so Vasilisa complies. As she is choking down the dry crust, a movement in the far corner of the hut catches Vasilisa's eye. The doll starts trembling in her pocket and hisses, don't look, but it's too late. Vasilisa is already looking. And what she is looking at are a set of hands piling up the dirty plates on the table. And another set of hands are wiping the table clean. And a third set of hands are loading the dishwasher. The weird thing is, this was before dishwashers. I'm kidding. The weird thing is that when I say a set of hands, I mean just that. A set of hands. No body. Fuck. Look away now, the doll orders, and Vasilisa whips her head so she is staring at the bricks of the masonry stove. It's time for you to sleep, the doll continues. Are you kidding? Vasilisa pulls the doll out of her pocket and puts it close to her face as she curls as small as she can against the fireplace. I have to do a whole bunch of impossible tasks. I can't sleep. If the doll were Cher, it would slap Vasilisa across the face and say, snap out of it. Google it. Instead, she leans in close, so her head is leaning against Vasilisa's forehead and says, you are tired, and it does you no good to attempt the impossible while sleep deprived. The only way to do the impossible is to accept help when it's freely given. So you go to sleep and rest for tomorrow's work. I promise, in the morning, things will look brighter. Because it will be day? Vasilisa asks. Duh, says the doll. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Vasilisa places her doll next to her head since she has no pillow and is so exhausted and drained that she immediately falls asleep. She sleeps deeply, so deeply that when she wakes up, it is full morning and Baba Yaga has already left for whatever she does during the day. Vasilisa does indeed feel better after getting some sleep. She gets up, places her doll into her apron pocket. She finds a broom hanging on one of the walls and pulls it down, ready to work, but when she goes to sleep, she sees that the floors are already perfectly clean. She looks where the broken jar of poppy seeds had been the night before and sees that they are now in a new jar up on the counter Again, perfectly clean. She looks out the window at the yard, and it looks tidy and tended, and yes, perfectly clean. And as she watches, the red knight, riding a red horse, gallops by. "Thank you," Vasilisa says softly to her doll. "You're welcome," the doll answers, giving her version of a snuggle. Now, before you get all bothered that the doll did the work when Vasilisa should have done it herself, let me stop you right there. That's the patriarchy talking. It's a way of keeping women down, telling them they have to do everything and be everything. If you have to do and be everything, you're going to be spread pretty thin and have little energy for things like social justice and righteous rebellion and reading for enjoyment. True friends, friends who will lift you up and hold you close and help you sort a pile of poppy seeds littered with glass shards and mouse turds, those relationships are precious and life-giving, sometimes life-saving. You get to receive help. "Did you happen to do the laundry too?" Vasilisa asks, thinking back to her mishap with the heavy cloak. "Yes," the doll says. "All that is left is cooking supper." So Vasilisa spends the day cooking, which is something she enjoys and is good at. The house is so interesting and full of every ingredient imaginable that she forgets to be anxious. In fact, she feels pretty great crafting a massive and magnificent feast. As she prepares the food, the house moves around. Occasionally, there are shuffling noises, and at one point, a pair of the disembodied hands reaches in front of Vasilisa to fetch the jar of poppy seeds. Out of the corner of her eye, she watches as the hands open the jar and then another set of hands start pressing the oil out of the seeds into another jar. "Have you ever heard of poppy seed oil?" Vasilisa murmurs to the doll. "Yes, that's the weird thing here." The doll virtually rolls her eyes. As evening nears, Vasilisa sets the table exactly as she remembers it from the night before. It is a sensational display, and once again the sturdy oak table groans under the weight of it all. Satisfied with her work, Vasilisa takes out a piece of the cheese she brought with her and looks out the window as she eats it. She sees the Black Knight on the black horse gallop by, and night falls and the skulls light up. A fierce wind blows through and the earth trembles and Baba Yaga cackles into view. Baba Yaga lands, exits her mortar with more grace than you'd expect. Vasilisa watches as the old witch examines the yard. The house swings down in a fluid movement and settles into the ground, and Baba Yaga enters, flinging off her cloak. She inspects every part of the house, and as she does so, she looks more and more angry, which is saying something, given that she has resting eat your children face. Finally, Baba Yaga returns to the sumptuous meal laid out on the table, and without a word plops down in her chair and digs in. Vasilisa hangs out of the way, standing, and not looking straight at Baba Yaga as she greedily consumes the spread, bones and all. There's a lot of smacking of lips and possibly other body parts, and it is clear from the guttural utterances that she is really into this food. It's like if Cookie Monster were a monster. When she is done, Baba Yaga groans with pleasure. She snaps her fingers, and a pair of disembodied hands bring her a pipe and a match. Strikes the match, lights her pipe, and puts her feet up on the table, tipping her chair against the wall behind her. She blows smoke rings at Vasilisa, and the doll indicates that it's time to give the old witch her full attention. So she does. A quick interjection. Usually, this whole completing impossible tasks is repeated 2 more times. It's literally the same thing for 2 more days, only with different tiny items to sort. So if you're a purist, imagine me repeating the last several paragraphs 2 more times. But if you're a purist, I'm surprised you made it this far because The story is far from pure. Anyways, there is significance to the repetition and to the number 3, but in the interest of time and attention span, I'm just going to cut to the chase. End interjection. That was good, Baba Yaga admits, satiated. And everything I tasked you with, is done. That's never happened before. And since I'm in the best mood I have ever been in since time was conceived, you may ask me a question. Consider carefully, though. Some questions lead to answers, and some questions lead to my belly. And she gives a big, gruesome smile that shows off her 2 sharp teeth. Vasilisa takes a moment to think about what she would like to ask. The first question that pops into her head is, what is up with the disembodied hands? But the doll is like, no, do not ask that. So instead, she asks, who are the 3 knights who ride by each day? The white, red, and black riders? Oh, fuck you, Baba Yaga says, clearly irritated. You get one question, and that's what you ask? I have the creepiest shit imaginable littering my hut, and you ask about the riders? Fine. The white one is dawn, the red one is day, and the black one is night. Idiot. I'll give you one more question because that one sucked. Vasilisa tries to think of another question, but the doll says, this is a trick. Just let it be. So Vasilisa says, I appreciate the offer, but I have no other questions for you. Baba Yaga sets down her pipe and slowly stands up, locking Vasilisa in her glare. She fills the room with more than her physical presence. She is huge and menacing, and Vasilisa is appropriately frightened, but she doesn't turn away. You don't want to know about this? Baba Yaga holds up a large jar with what looks like a human brain in it. Or this? She pulls a cage down that is hanging by a chain from the roof and has a lederhosen-clad skeleton in it. Not even about these? She points at the 3 sets of disembodied hands, all of which freeze mid-table clearing. Vasilisa totally wants to know about all of that, but the doll is adamant that asking would be a very bad thing. So Vasilisa once again says, I appreciate the offer, but I have no other questions for you. What the fuck, girl? Baba Yaga tosses the brain jar to one of the sets of hands and releases the cage, which clambers back up to the ceiling. She returns to her chair and her pipe. You know, she says, if you had asked about anything within the borders of my property, I would have eaten you. As full as I am, I would have devoured you. But you asked about the riders, who are just outside my borders. And somehow you perfectly completed all the tasks I gave you to do, seemingly with time to spare. So now I will ask you a question. How? Do I tell her about you? Vasilisa asks the doll in her mind. Hell no, the doll replies. Don't you dare lie, Baba Yaga warns knowingly. I eat liars. My mother's blessing, Vasilisa says. And then Baba Yaga loses her shit.